Welcome to the Nonsense Wars channel. Today we look at the vertical shooter, my entry for the Great Ball Pit 2021 challenge. This year, the rules require modules to lift balls 2 feet, a considerable height when most GBCs probably stand between 6 to 12 inches. As usual, I will talk a bit about both the design process and the module itself. I originally wanted to build a Zammer pump, but it proved a poor fit. I will cover that in a future video, so stay tuned. After brainstorming some alternative concepts, I wanted to make a module that raised the balls 2 feet high without actually being 2 feet high. I thought about building some kind of retracting lift or arm, but then I thought I could simply launch balls to the required height. I built some rapid prototypes to determine the power and accuracy of a simple wheel shooter. I used this design because I thought it had the best power to complexity ratio, the most power for the least complexity, and the initial results seemed promising. A PFL motor had enough juice to shoot balls to the required height, and the trajectory of said balls looked consistent enough. Then I added a loader, a twin variant of my usual step design, to get a better grasp on accuracy, and I quickly discovered that I couldn't launch balls straight up, or they would often drop right back into the shooter. I angled the launch rails slightly to guide balls away from the exit. They have to arc backwards since the track starts below and wraps forward of the balls. Thus, I had to put the catcher above the input. As far as I can tell, nothing in the GBC spec prohibits this. Sadly, it also makes the module taller than I would have liked, but it still tops out below 12 inches. I built the actual box from panels and plates, and I dampened it with springs. Probably overkill, but I worried about balls bouncing out. Balls also land with a lot of backspin, and they can leave the catcher with considerable speed if they drop in front of an exit. The auxiliary output ramps have wedges at the ends to prevent those balls from flying off the main output ramp. Ultimately, a 20 by 18 area had a miss rate of about 3%, and a 24 by 18 area reduced it to less than 1%. Over-engineering is a bit of a theme with this module, so let's look at the drivetrain. The shooting wheel mounts on a pivoting arm such that only gravity and torque press it against accelerating balls. The pivoting shooter doesn't squeeze balls as hard as a fixed shooter, and this reduces wear on the wheel, the ball, and even on drivetrain components. A chain drives the shooter because it has less friction and saps less power than a traditional geared drive shaft, especially at speed. The chain runs loosely past a fixed idler. This doesn't actually tension the loop, it only picks up enough slack such that the driving gears grip. The torque on the shooter keeps the pulling side taut, and the idler also ensures that the return side doesn't flop too much. While the module doesn't pull that much power in a steady state, the shooting wheel does have significant rotational inertia, and this causes two issues. One, it stresses the drivetrain and motor significantly when starting and stopping, and two, it takes a few seconds to spin up and spin down, during which balls can get stuck. To address issue 1, I put a clutch gear in front of the motor, which should cap the amount of torque on both the motor and the drivetrain. To address issue 2, I put an actual clutch before the loader such that I can disconnect it while the shooter spins up. The latter probably won't fly in a production setting, but I'm gonna call it better than nothing. Power still comes from an L motor. The shooter has 5-to-1 gearing, and the loader has 1-to-5 gearing. The module processes balls a little faster than spec speed, but clearing the input quickly helps prevent double loading, which can increase misses. Even then, the sensitivity of the shooter requires me to tune it differently for battery or mains power, and it still probably needs a bigger catcher for production reliability. All in all, as long as the module sits level, I think it runs well enough for the challenge. So on that note, this is the end of the video, and have a nice day.